just as a little pick-me-up for sitting here all day. And then I also wanted to, I saw that a couple people wrote some things on the parking lot, so I wanted to address those really quick. The first one, I believe it says Wi-Fi password. There is no password. So if you, who was having a problem with it?
Got it all figured out.
Oh, you got it all figured out? Okay. Well then, you make my life really easy. And then the next thing on the parking lot was asking about vaccines, children being vaccinated. If the person's okay with sharing, who wrote that up there?
That was me.
Okay.
Totally unrelated, but I figured.
That's okay.
An environment where.
It is the perfect environment to talk about that. So your question would be how to respond to parents when they ask about.
Yeah, I was approached by parents of, mom and dad, and they're like, well, and it's not like mandatory for children to be vaccinated. It's kind of like a hot topic these days,
Yeah.
maybe hot button for some people, others, children or parents and children choosing not to get vaccinated. And in an environment like a childcare center, that may or may not put other children or maybe pregnant women at risk. So how to respond one way or the other, and
To parents.
To parents who, for example, unrelated, but like we just had a mom give birth to her second child, and she obviously in the last month has been pregnant, walking into school. Like, let's say there is a child present who is not vaccinated, so she's being put at risk. So
Yep.
how would I respond?
And I can imagine that's something that a lot of people have come across just because there are, people feel differently, especially when it comes to medical concerns with their children. And I'd actually love to ask Shelley what her thoughts on this. Shelley mentioned this earlier, but she's in an administrative role within the school district. So I thought this might be something that, with her background and her experience, she might be able to help us with.
Sure. Yeah, this is a tricky one, and this is a really personal one. I would say a couple things. When parents approach you about these things, I think you want to always come at it from a place of, you're here to give them information as you are allowed to, so that they can make informed decisions. And so it is not required in this state that children be vaccinated. Parents can choose to opt out of vaccinations. We just have to have a record where they, write that they've opted out of. And sometimes I've seen where parents just opt out of one vaccine, like one I see a lot is the MMR, because they just want their kids to get chickenpox, I think. But they can opt out of one or two or all of them, so you just have to have a record of that in place of their immunizations. So the other thing that I would say is that not this last school year, at the end of the school year before that, so when would that be? The end of the school year in 2014, so spring of 2014. There was a new law passed that states that you cannot tell parents who has not been immunized, but you have to tell them the percentage of children in that classroom or in your program who have not been immunized if they request that information. So you can either give it as a percentage, or you can say 13 out of 15, 2 out of 15 have not been immunized, or something like that.
So does everyone, because that's a really
Does that
big
make sense?
takeaway, I think, does everyone understand that with percentages and, not being allowed to do
And I
confidentiality?
I have a memo from the state. I can share it with Jason and Lacey. You can send it out to all of you, so you can see what it says. They do have some websites and things that are on there that you can share with parents if they want to get some information about immunizations and the safety of immunizations. But what I would say is, I think how you have to approach it is, if they're requesting that information, you are required to give it to them, but you can't state whose names they are. And I think the reason that bill was passed was so that parents could make informed decisions. And ultimately, you just have to encourage that family to, if there are children in this classroom or in this program that aren't immunized, and you, as a parent, aren't comfortable with that, they may have to make the decision to either choose a different school, or ask to be in a different classroom, or choose that they're okay with it. And I think the intent of the bill was so that parents could make informed decisions, because otherwise they were just left wondering and they didn't know. So this way they can know there are however many kids in this class classroom, and now they as a parent have to decide. I would avoid giving any advice around that, you know, I mean, if that's your personal opinion that you wouldn't put your child in that classroom, I would avoid sharing any of that kind of information. That would be your decision. The letter that I'll share with Lacey, it has some information on there. There's a good website, I can't remember what it's called, that just has some facts about immunizations. So I mean, I would refer them to those types of resources where they can again get more facts and information to inform them to make the decision that's right for their family and their child.
Awesome, thank
That's
you.
what I would say.
Yeah, that was a great answer. Thank you very much. Do we feel
But
like
people will still kind of try to corner you sometimes and ask you what you would do.
Yeah.
And
well,
the more
I
you can be armed with,
parents,
here's a
so-
resource where you can get more information. Just try to give them facts and information and give them what you're required to give them.
And then it becomes, you know, off of, well, my teacher told me to do this with my child. It becomes, here are the resources so you can make an, I really like that piece. You're basically helping parents to make an informed decision by providing them with the information.
I avoid ever saying, I recommend that you do this, except in the sense of, I recommend that you look at this resource to get more information for yourself. But yeah, that's their decision, and all you can do is give them information to make an informed decision.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Shelley.
Yeah.
So if everyone feels pretty good about that, and everyone was able to get all the Wi-Fi and stuff, then we'll move on to start session 9. Again, you know, we'll be talking about environments and supportive environments, but now we'll be looking more closely at expectations and transitions, which transitions I know for a lot of people in a lot of classrooms can really be a chaotic, tough time. So we're really going to spend a lot of time talking about that today. So again, we want to thank our state funders as well as our local funders. This is just a little overview of what we're going to do. We're going to do a few activities, like I said, talk about transitions. We're also going to touch upon punishment versus prevention and prevention strategies. And then we will wrap up session 9. So a few learning objectives from session 9. We're going to talk about some techniques for using those universal prevention strategies, such as giving directions to children. We're going to talk about teaching expectations, the difference between expectations and rules. And then you're also going to receive some information, again, on punishment versus prevention. A few logistics. Does everyone know where the bathroom still is? It hasn't moved or anything. Ground rules, parking lot. If you need anything, take care of yourself. So like I said, session 9, we're going to talk about expectations and transitions. And I just want to remind everybody that, you know, everything we're talking about is research-based, so there is evidence to back everything up. So this is just a quick little quote that is added in. Does anyone want to read this for me?
Sure.
Thank you, Michelle, my reader.
Children are less likely to engage in problem behavior when they know what to do, how to do it, and what is expected.
And that's just a quick, short piece to remember. I could see this like on a wall in the staff room in a center or something like that. Just a reminder that research shows that children are less likely to exhibit those challenging behaviors if they know what's coming. I mean, probably the same could be said for a lot of us. I know that if I know what's coming, if I know I'm going to have to go outside, I'm not going to throw a fit when I go outside. That was a poor example, but sorry about that. So now we're going to watch 2 really short videos. They're super short, but they're actually a little bit fun and kind of funny, so I like to watch them. The first one is just an example of, it's actually a Charlie Brown video, about giving directions, because we're going to be talking about that and how important it is to give certain types of directions to children. As adults, we can sometimes forget how to give directions. They can be very boring or they can be very confusing. So we're going to look at some videos that are boring and confusing. Has anyone ever been there before when someone's giving out boring directions?
Charlie was into it.
Yeah, Charlie was into it, but
I don't get it.
So this next one is a little bit longer. It's about a minute long, and this one is just an example of how directions can get very confusing.
straight ahead. If you make a right at that VIP booth, you'll see a coin cage on your right-hand side. Where you see the coin cage, make a left there and head out towards the boardwalk. It's not really a path because the slot machines come across in front. If you just look for the doorway that leads out to the boardwalk, and it's right on the left-hand side. Okay? Okay.
Video's a little outdated. So, I mean, I think we can all agree, other than how outdated the video is, that those directions were pretty confusing. And it's just a good way to remind ourselves that, you know, especially when we're speaking to children, directions need to be clear and concise. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So some strategies for giving effective directions. Looking at children, we talked about that physical touch too. I know that if I came over to Jen and I started going like this, she's going to look right at me because I'm standing right in front of her. Stating directions positively. You know, we talked about in the past that positivity ratio for every, 5 positive statements, you want to have 1 negative statement. You really want to avoid that negativity. The 3 S's, that directions should be short, simple, and specific. When appropriate, you can give the child choices. It's again important to remember to be aware of how many choices you're giving children. It's important to remember that children, they're not born with the ability to make decisions and deal with the consequences, regardless of what those decisions are. So you give them 12 choices, they're not going to have time in that 10-second window to go through those 12 choices and make the decision that's best for them. So we have to teach those things by giving them 2 choices, or maybe 3 at max, depending on the age of the child. One of the ones that I really want to highlight on this slide, and we actually talked about that in our parenting class that Catherine touched on earlier, was giving children an opportunity to respond. Giving them that 3 to 5, maybe with some other children it's a little bit longer, giving them that time to process the information, to decide what the decision is that they want to make. So often it's, you want to give Johnny a choice. Do you want to wear the red hat or the blue hat? But every other child is lined up to get ready to go outside. So you need that answer right now, Johnny. They're all doing a really good job. But when it's possible, you want to give that child a chance to think it through and make the decision that he wants. So now we're actually going to do a really fun activity. And it's actually one of my favorite activities in the Pyramid Plus sessions. I've been volunteer for this one before. So I'll tell you a little bit about what we're going to do before I ask for volunteers so you can decide. What we're going to do is I have some manipulatives, some blocks that we're going to be using. And what we're going to do is 2 people are going to sit back to back, and then we're going to do some activities regarding giving directions. And then everyone else is going to be observers. So I promise it's not hard. And if you'd like, we can shut off the video camera so you don't have to be videotaped. But is there anyone that would like to volunteer to be a part of it? Oh, I see 2 hands right here. Thank you, Maria, but I see 2 right here. Yeah, I bet you can shut that off. So what I'll have you guys do, we can have everybody else get up. I'll have you 2 ladies bring your chairs over right here. Taylor, I want you to have to move them. We're going to put one right here. You're going to put your back here.
I'm keeping it going because you're still giving directions.
That's fine.
Okay.
We still look good on camera?
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys look lovely.
So here's what we're gonna do. Yeah, if you can see, if you can't see, go ahead and get up and move. But what we're gonna do,
Do you want help, Lacey?
I should be alright. Okay, so I'm gonna give each of our lovely volunteers a set of blocks, and they have the exact same set of blocks. Here you are. There's one. And the blocks, like I said, are all the exact same. There you are. And now what we're going to do is we are going to have, and Erica, if you're okay with this, I'm going to use you. We're going to have Erica build a structure. And she is going to build a structure first, and then she is going to describe, I'm so sorry, what was Leah? Leah, that's right. She is going to describe to Leah how she built it and what she did. And then we are going to observe, and then afterwards we're going to look at the 2 structures and see how the directions given went. Sound good? Does anybody have any questions before we do that? No? Okay. So go ahead.